If you go online right now and just type Philadelphia experiment into a search bar, your screen will just explode. I mean, millions of hits.
Oh, absolutely. Movies, books, forums.
Exactly. Deep, dark forums debating physics that, well, that frankly shouldn't even exist. It's a story that just refuses to go away. But if you strip all that noise back, you land in a very specific and very desperate time and place.
The summer of 1943. You're at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard.
And the world is on fire. In the Atlantic, it's an absolute slaughter. German U-boats are sinking Allied ships faster than they can be built.
The U.S. Navy wasn't just looking for an edge. They were desperate. They needed a miracle.
A way to get ships across the ocean without getting blown to pieces. And according to the legend we're diving into, they didn't just find a way to hide a ship. No, they found a way to completely break reality.
It is the ultimate be careful what you wish for story. The Navy wanted stealth. The legend says they got teleportation, they got time travel, and a level of body horror that is just off the charts.
We are talking about the USS Eldridge, a destroyer that supposedly vanished into a green fog and literally traveled through hell. We've got a huge stack of sources, Navy logs, witness claims, skeptical breakdowns. But before we get to the time loops and aliens, we have to start with the science.
Because the wildest part is that this whole thing starts with legitimate high-level physics.
It starts with the unified field theory.
The scientific holy grail of the 20th century. You had Albert Einstein, who, by the way, was actually a consultant for the Navy at the time.
Okay, let's pause right there. I barely passed high school physics. In plain English, what does linking electromagnetism and gravity actually mean?
Think of it like this. Gravity holds you to the floor. Electromagnetism powers your lights. Einstein believed they were just two sides of the same coin.
So if you could control one,
You could control the other. The theory behind the experiment codenamed Project Rainbow in the lore was that if you create a powerful enough electromagnetic field around a ship, you could actually bend light waves around it.
like water flowing around a rock in a stream.
Exactly. If light bends around the ship, it becomes invisible to the eye, and more importantly, invisible to radar.
Yeah.
That was the goal. Electronic camouflage.
And they brought in the heavy hitters. You have Einstein, but the sources also mention another name that always pops up when electricity gets spooky.
Nikola Tesla.
Of course.
The lore claims Tesla was the project's original director. But, and this is a key part of the whole mythos, he supposedly quit.
Why?
He had a crisis of conscience. The story goes that Tesla did the math and realized the potential biological damage to the crew. He warned the Navy, "You are going to cook these men alive."
Wow.
He wanted more time, but the Navy said, "There's a war on, proceed," and Tesla supposedly sabotaged the gear and just walked away.
That adds such a layer of dread to it. The genius tries to stop the machine. So Tesla's out. John von Neumann, another giant, steps in. Now, fast forward to August 12, 1943. The USS Eldridge is in the harbor, packed with these massive generators.
And something called the zero-time reference generator, which was supposed to keep the ship locked in our dimension.
They flip the switch. And this is where the witness descriptions get incredibly specific.
It's not just a fade-out, no. The air starts to crackle. A low hum builds into a scream. And then the green fog appears.
A greenish, phosphorescent mist that doesn't just surround the ship, it swallows it.
And then, poof, the ship is gone. Not just off radar, physically gone. There is just a hole in the ocean where a destroyer used to be.
And this is where it jumps from a science experiment to something else entirely, the teleportation.
At that exact moment, 200 miles south in Norfolk, Virginia, witnesses on a merchant ship, the SS Andrew Furuseth, they claimed they saw the Eldridge just pop into existence.
Appear out of thin air.
For a few minutes, yeah. Then it vanished again and snapped right back to Philadelphia.
So they did it. They moved a massive object 200 miles in seconds. If it ended there, it's a military triumph. But it didn't end there.
No. When that green fog finally cleared in Philadelphia, the people on the dock, they knew something had gone horribly, horribly wrong.
This is the part that turns it into a campfire story, the aftermath.
When the shore patrol boarded the ship, the air smelled like ozone and burning flesh. The crew had been destroyed.
And we're not talking about normal battle injuries. We're talking about physics going haywire.
Yes. The most gruesome detail, the one in every retelling, is the fusion. When the ship rematerialized, the molecular timing was off. Sailors who were just standing on the deck simply merged with the steel.
My God, can you even imagine that? You look down and your legs are just, they're part of the bulkhead.
Survivors described men with their hands embedded in railings, bodies half buried in the floor, still alive, screaming. Their biology was just intertwined with the ship's metal.
That is pure nightmare fuel. But it wasn't just the physical fusion, was it? There were mental effects.
Oh, huge ones. The sailors who weren't fused were suffering from something the sources call the deep freeze,
The deep freeze, what is that?
a state of total paralysis. A man would be walking and just stop, frozen mid-step. Not dead, but stuck in time. And if another crewman didn't physically touch them, lay hands on them, to ground them back to our reality, they would just fade away completely, vanish. They called it going blank.
So the crew had to run around tagging their friends just to keep them in this dimension.
Yes. And if you were left frozen for too long, some reports say you just burst into flames. Spontaneous combustion.
It's absolute chaos. A ship full of madmen, burning men, and men becoming part of the architecture. And of course, the Navy supposedly covers the whole thing up.
Brainwash the survivors, discharge them as mentally unfit, scrub the logs. The classic conspiracy playbook.
But someone started talking. We have to discuss the guy who lit this whole fire. The mysterious Carl Allen.
Or Carlos Miguel Allende. He used a few names.
In the 1950s, he starts sending these bizarre letters to an astronomer, Morris K. Jessup.
And they weren't normal letters. They were written in multicolored ink, with weird capitalization, frantic underlining. He claimed he was a sailor on that merchant ship in Norfolk.
The Andrew Furusef.
Yeah, he said he saw the Eldridge appear. Said he saw crewmen get in a bar fight later and then just vanish into thin air.
And he sent Jessup a copy of Jessup's own UFO book, but it was filled with handwritten notes.
The Vero edition. The margins were filled with notes from 3 different beings discussing the experiment, alien tech, gravity.
But it was probably just Allen writing in different voices, right?
Most likely. But it was strange enough that the Office of Naval Research actually brought Jessup in to look at it. And then, a few years later, Jessup committed suicide.
Which, of course, the conspiracy theorists say means he was silenced.
Exactly. It sealed the legend.
So for decades, that was the story. A green fog, a disappearing ship. But then, in the 1980s, a man named Al Bielek comes forward. And if Carl Allen lit the match, Al Bielek poured a tanker of gasoline on the fire.
Bielek is where the story goes from a WWII mystery to a full-blown sci-fi epic. He claimed he wasn't really Al Bielek. He said he was born Edward Cameron, and he was on the deck of the Eldridge in 1943.
With his brother, Duncan.
Correct. And this is where it gets truly wild. He says when the experiment went haywire, he and his brother realized the ship was doomed, so they jumped overboard to try and swim to safety.
But they never hit the water.
No, they just kept falling.
Through what Bielek called a hyperspace tunnel, a swirling vortex. And when they finally landed, they weren't in Philadelphia. They weren't even in 1943.
They landed on the grass at a military base in Montauk, Long Island, in the year 1983.
Okay, let's unpack this. Why 1983? Why Montauk?
This is the Montauk Project. The conspiracy claims the 2 experiments, Philadelphia in 43 and Montauk in 83, were linked.
How?
Through something called Earth biorhythms. The idea is that the Earth's natural energy field peaks every 20 years. 1943. 1963, 1983.
So the 2 experiments were on these energy peaks.
And they snapped together across time. The 43 experiment tore a hole in space-time, and the 83 experiment just sucked the Cameron brothers right through it.
And who was waiting for them in 1983?
And much older John von Neumann.
The same guy from 1943.
The very same, now living as Dr. Reinhardt. And he tells them, I've been waiting 40 years for you.
It's just incredible storytelling. It ties it all up. So what was the Montauk Project actually doing?
It's much darker. Philadelphia was an accident. Montauk was intentional. They were using a device called the Montauk chair.
Oh, what?
A mind-reading chair, supposedly enhanced with alien technology. A psychic sits in the chair, and a massive transmitter amplifies their thoughts and makes them physically real.
So if you think of a car just appears.
Yes. Or if you think of a person, you can see through their eyes. But it gets worse. They talk about the Montauk boys.
This is where it gets really disturbing.
It is. Bielek claims the project abducted runaway children and used the chair to program them into super soldiers or assassins, sent them through time tunnels to Mars or to the Civil War.
It goes from sci-fi to state-sponsored kidnapping really fast.
It does. And the climax of the whole story is the beast.
The beast from the eye.
Duncan Cameron, the brother, is in the chair. He allegedly taps into his subconscious and unleashes this monster, A physical, hairy, massive beast that materializes and just starts destroying the base.
So you have a psychic Bigfoot rampaging through a secret base in 1983 while his brother's trying to get back to 1943.
Pretty much. Von Neumann tells them the only way to close the loop is to go back to 43 and destroy the equipment on the Eldridge.
And that's what caused the accident.
Exactly. They time travel back, smash the generators with axes, and that's what makes the ship rematerialize with the crew fused to the deck. They were saving the world from a time paradox.
My brain hurts. It's a perfect closed loop that explains everything and nothing.
A masterpiece of conspiracy fiction.
Okay. Fiction. That's the word. We've had our fun. Now we have to be the adults in the room and look at the cold, hard facts.
Let's turn on the lights. If you look at the actual deck logs for the USS Eldridge, which are public record, the ship was nowhere near Philadelphia in August 1943.
Where was it?
On its shakedown cruise in the Bahamas. Then it was in New York. We have the logs, the dates, the captain's signatures.
What about the SS Andrew Furuseth, the ship Carl Allen was supposedly on?
Also not there. Its logs show it was on its way to Casablanca. The two ships were never in the same port at the same time.
So mechanically, the whole story just falls apart. But where did it come from? There's usually a grain of truth, right? You mentioned degaussing.
Yes, this is the most likely culprit. Degaussing was a real WWII technology. The Navy wrapped ships in giant electrical cables to cancel out their magnetic field.
So they wouldn't trigger magnetic sea mines.
Right. And if you're a sailor who doesn't understand the physics, and you see your ship wrapped in cables and hear officers talking about making it invisible to magnetic sensors.
You might write home and say, they're making the ship invisible. It's a game of telephone.
Absolutely. And the green fog. There was another experiment in the 1950s on a ship called the USS Timmerman. They tested a high-frequency generator that created massive green corona discharges. St. Elmo's fire.
So you mix stories about degaussing with stories about a green glow.
And you get the Philadelphia experiment.
And what about the disappearing sailors?
Oh, my favorite explanation is the barroom brawl theory. A few sailors from the Eldridge get into a fight at a local tavern. The shore patrol gets called. What do?
You run out the back door and disappear into the night to avoid the cops.
Exactly. And a local, a few drinks in, says, I swear those guys just vanished into thin air.
It's so much more believable than a time wormhole.
But there is one modern twist. We laughed about invisibility earlier, but technology is actually catching up to the legend.
Metamaterials.
Yes. Scientists are developing materials that can literally bend light waves around an object. The physics behind the Philadelphia experiment, the core idea, is actually becoming theoretically possible.
So the Navy wasn't wrong, they were just 80 years too early.
Or, if you want to believe the conspiracy, they were right on time.
So this is where we have to leave it. On one side, you have ship logs, a misunderstanding of real science and a known prankster. On the other, a story that links Einstein, Tesla, and a government cover-up spanning a century.
It really comes down to what you want to believe. Do you live in a world where sailors exaggerate, or one where reality itself can be rewritten?
And that leads us to our final provocative thought for you to chew on.
It comes from the deepest parts of the Montauk Files. The suggestion is that we are all, right now, living in an artificial time loop. That our reality, this conversation, you driving your car, is a stabilized timeline created by the Montauk equipment to stop the universe from collapsing after the 1943 mistake.
So, if that loop ever broke,
we might wake up in the real timeline, or we might just cease to exist. The question is, if your entire life is just a patch on a broken reality, how would you ever know?
Well, I'm definitely not going to sleep tonight. Thank you for that.
Just doing my job.
That's the Philadelphia experiment. Hoax. Horror story. Or the reason you have deja vu. We'll let you decide. Stay curious, question the official narrative, and hey, if you see a green fog rolling in, catch you on the next deep dive.